Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to another episode of the Decentering Men series. In this episode, I'm going to talk about how long marriage equals gabuse. I can't say the word here on YouTube without getting demonetized, but I see a lot of people who they comment on my Decentering Men videos, and they say things like, don't give up hope, not all men are bad. My first response is I never said all. I never say all on any of my videos. I don't say all men, all women, all black women, or anything like that. But secondly, just because a person has been with someone for a long time, it does not mean that that guy has never crossed their boundaries. In fact, it is statistically not possible for you to be with another human being, living with them, having children with them, raising kids with them, sharing money with them, sharing a house with them. You're with them for 20 years and you're telling me that they never cross any of your boundaries? That is statistically impossible. So let's get into the reality of what a lot of long marriages actually are like. So I'm going to be focusing on marriages where people have been together 20 years, 30 years, and 40 years. In my opinion, all of those marriages have at some point dealt with some of the common things that we see people talking about online, such as emotional abuse, physical abuse, cheating and infidelity, or emotional unavailability, which is actually tied into emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is actually one of the most common things that happens in long-term relationships, but let's talk about what that actually is and some signs of what it is. The silent treatment. For those of you who were married in a two-parent household like I was, a lot of us, we know the reality of long marriages. I mean, my parents have been married for, my whole life. They've been together my whole life, so I've never seen them unmarried or single. But I guess I can just start off by using my parents as an example. My mother was the default parent, first of all. So I actually consider my mother to be more of a single mother because even though my father was physically around, my father, he didn't really do much other than giving orders. So I came from a religious background where it's like the man is the head of the house. I came from a very strong Christian background. So my dad was kind of like the head of the house. He just got to make the final decisions, and it was up to my mom to kind of make sure to put in the action to make sure that whatever my dad wanted happened in the house. So a lot of women who are in these long marriages, they are centering their lives around their husband's mood. They're centering your life around, oh, how is he feeling today? Is he tired today? Is he happy today? Is he sad today? He's not speaking to me today. I know that I've witnessed that even with my own parents. So a lot of these women who are wives, They've had to spend decades revolving their whole entire life around their man's mood. Imagine that. Like, seriously, think about your level of happiness if you constantly have to worry about, okay, we're going on vacation this weekend. Oh, what kind of mood is Scott going to be in? I know that he's been going through things at work and he's probably not going to want to have as much fun. Oh, crap, he's stressed out. You guys know that a lot of men are not very emotionally intelligent. A lot of guys are not able to even form a vocabulary to describe their own emotions. So if a man doesn't even know how to describe his own emotions, he doesn't even know how to manage his own emotions, you're telling me that he's suddenly going to be able to create an emotional safe space for you? And he's going to do that perfectly for the next 20 years, or he has done that perfectly for the entire 20 years that you've been with him? That is completely delusional. Most women who have been married for decades, they're only telling people the positive parts of their marriages. They're not telling women online the negative things that have happened in their marriages. They're not talking about the things that they have had to endure throughout the course of their 20 years being with their husbands, because they know that as soon as they tell you the real deal and as soon as they stop capping, they know that they will be eaten up alive on social media. They know that they will get called out. They know that people will be telling them that they wasted their time. A lot of these women, even women who are married to wealthy men, a lot of those women were actually Barbara the Builders, and that man wouldn't even be wealthy without that woman. And once again, I will use people who come from a two-parent household as an example. For those of you who come from a two-parent household like myself and your parents are married or they have been married your whole life, would you take the marriage that your parents have. And you know what? I've noticed that some people are also biased if one of their parents is deceased, because we have this silly rule that if somebody is deceased that you can't say anything negative about them. And I do not believe in that. I believe in holding people accountable, whether they are dead or alive. I believe in telling the truth, whether a person is dead or alive. But I've noticed that a lot of people who have been married for a long time, they don't tell you, oh yeah, by the way, he cheated and had a side baby 5 years in, but we just worked through it and got over it, and we're still together. A lot of women, they won't tell you stuff like that. All they're going to say is, yeah, we've been together for 20 years. He's a high value man. But then they don't give you any examples. Have you ever noticed that the women who come online and say, I've been happily married for 20 years, they don't give you an example of what exactly made them happy. And if they do, they don't give you any examples of, hey, these are the arguments we had. And that's because social media is a highlight reel. So here on this channel, we are critical thinkers. We are not silly enough to make lifelong decisions based off of a random stranger giving you a highlight reel online. Think about the vows of marriage: in sickness and in health, till death do you part, for richer or for poorer. So this means that, yes, you are most likely going to be with a man. If you're with him for 20 years, you're going to deal with him being in poverty. Not every man, even if he has money, there's no guarantee that he's going to still have that money 20 years from now. Like I said, I have been around people in my family who are married, who were married for a long time, and they will get with a guy and he will start off with money, but then the money will dwindle over time. Or maybe the guy gets sick and then, he can't do his job in the same way. And then the woman is expected to pick up the slack at his company. And then, let's say he has his company, it blows up, it is successful. And then he uses his newfound health and wealth to go out and get a younger woman. Also, side note, if men are only attracted to women who are younger or women who appear to be more youthful than themselves, then what is the point if you are going to age in the marriage anyway? So it's like, okay, so you're getting into this marriage. It's supposed to last until you both die. And he is supposed to still be sexually attracted to you, physically attracted to you, and you're still going to be in love even when you're 80 years old and gray and wrinkly. No, a lot of times when a man says he loves you, if you ask him to define what he loves about you or why he loves you, he will begin naming the ways in which you serve him. He will begin naming the ways in which you please him. He will begin naming all of the things that you do for him. Even if you look at those videos on YouTube about old married couples and how they made their marriage last so long, some of the top things that they'll say is forgiveness. So, okay, I have to forgive him when he cheats. I have to forgive him when he calls me names. I have to forgive him when he curses at me, when he throws stuff at me, when he breaks things in the house. If you go on Reddit and you go to the marriage pages, you will see plenty of people who are just average, everyday people. They're not famous. They're not super rich, because the average woman online, any person she meets, she's not going to meet a guy who is just this multi-billionaire perfect guy. No, that's a fantasy. So the average people who are getting married today, they are getting married to regular everyday people who are not rich and not famous. So if you go on the marriage Reddit, that is actually more reflective of what a lot of marriages are like, because most marriages, they don't have the shield of millions of dollars, or, they have a nanny they can hire. They have a maid that they can hire 40 hours a week. And yes, there may be exceptions, but exceptions don't make the rule. So what I don't understand is when women come online and they say, oh, I married this guy who is like really, really rich and my life is so great. It's like, that's wonderful. But I guess, how does that really help other women? Like, are you trying to teach other women how to do the same thing as you? Or did you just come online to get validation because you're trying to convince yourself that your life is not as bad as it actually is? And by the way, I'm not saying that to be shady. You know why? Because I was that person myself. I know what it's like to be the one who is married and you feel like that's kind of all you have. And so when you see other women who are kind of calling out the flaws in your marriage, like, hey, that's a 50-50 marriage. Hey, the woman does more work. She does more of the emotional labor. So when you start realizing that as a married woman, you try to cope by saying, oh no, but I won, like I'm better than all of you guys. All of you guys can learn from me because I was married now. And it's like, no, tell us the truth about what's really going on. But let's look up what emotional abuse actually is. It is the silent treatment. It is blaming others for your feelings. Have you ever had a man say things like, oh, I cheated on you because you didn't make me feel emotionally safe, or because I didn't feel like I could talk to you, so I went and texted my ex and talked to her on the phone for 3 hours because she listens to me. Blaming others for your feelings. That is actually emotional abuse. manipulating to get what you want. Men are taught this from birth. You know why? Because most men are not shit without women. So a lot of men, they actually are not high value enough to attract a good high value woman. And so men have to resort to lies and manipulation in order to even get a woman's attention. I am to the point now where I hardly believe anything a man says that comes out of his mouth, because men have lied about so many things because they have an end goal. So, for example, you'll be on a date with a guy and he will say, "Oh, I'm an engineer," when in reality, he's not an engineer. He is an engineering assistant or something. Or he'll say, "Oh, I'm a physician." He's not a physician. He's a physician's assistant. Or he will say things like, "Oh, I own a company," when in reality, he does not own a company. He is just a contractor, an independent contractor, or a freelancer for someone else's company. So a lot of men naturally manipulate and they naturally lie. So would I want to be in a marriage for 20 years where I know that I have been getting lied to for 20 years? No, I don't want to spend my life being lied to. I don't want to spend my life trying to uphold a false image in the eyes of others. We are too smart for that these days. The millennials, Gen Z, we're not falling for it. We already know the truth because we have examined our own parents. We have examined people in the dating market. We've examined the divorce rate, and we have so much information at our fingertips to the point where a random person going on TikTok and saying, "Well, my man, my man, my man," that's not going to convince us that you have not gone through emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or infidelity throughout your 20-year marriage. Another thing that I wanted to say, I'm in the middle of editing this video, but all men have flaws. So no matter what relationship you're in, you're going to be dealing with dust. So what type of dust does your husband bring? Emotional dust, financial dust, cheating dust, side baby dust? Like, what kind of dust is in that marriage? Because there is some dust. There's no way that you're just in a marriage and it was perfect the whole time. No. Either you were paying for his bills at one point, or you were letting him cheat at one point, or you overlooked his pornography addiction, or you overlooked his gambling addiction and his vices. A lot of women who have been married for decades, they have spent the past few decades dealing with their husband's vices. The fact that he drinks a lot, the fact that he spends all of his money, his savings money on cigarettes, he spends all of his money on vaping, he spends his money on going to the casino and gambling it away. And so the mom, in order to stay married, she doesn't mind living in a small house for the rest of her life so that her husband can spend all of their savings money on cigarettes. So the question that you have to ask married women is, what sacrifices did she make? What type of dust did she tolerate in order to remain in that marriage for 20 years? Emotional dust, financial dust, addiction dust, cheating dust? What kind of dust is it? But some other signs of an emotionally abusive relationship are your partner says things purposely to upset you or to frighten you. I've been around lots of people like this. They will purposely say things that they know are going to hurt you. So for example, let's say you want to lose weight. This guy will purposely say, "Oh, well, it doesn't look like you lost weight." Or he will just start to nitpick and chip away at your self-esteem. Or maybe you wanted to start a business. For those of you who come from a two-parent home, maybe your mom has, she has some dreams or something and she wanted to start a restaurant. And then your dad always said, "Well, we don't have money to invest in a restaurant." So he kind of naturally shot down her ideas while wanting to support his own ideas. I know that my father has done that before to my mother, where she will say like, "Oh, I want to do a restaurant one day," or "I want to do XYZ." And then he'll say stuff like, "Well, we don't have the money to invest in that." Meanwhile, my mom is the one who makes the majority of the money. But because of Christianity, in Christianity, the man is the head of the household and the woman has to be submissive, like biblically speaking. So if you're not being a submissive wife, you are literally sinning, according to the Bible. So because he is the head of the household, the woman just has to listen to that. And that's another thing. I don't want to spend the next 20 to 50 years having to submit to somebody else, or like my whole purpose is to help somebody else live theirs. I don't want to be anybody's helpmeet. I don't want to be anybody's domestic servant. I don't want to be anybody's personal assistant for the rest of their lives. I don't want to be there just wasting my life, wasting my youth, wasting my beauty, wasting my body, wasting my pleasure, or like missing out on pleasure, missing out on happiness in my own life because I am constantly trying to revolve my life around his. I've noticed a pattern with the people in my family who are still married. The people in my family who have been married for 20 or 30 years, there's a pattern where usually the woman is revolving everything around the man's mood, or she is kind of the one creating the romance in the marriage. She is the one creating the magic in the marriage. And of course, the man will sometimes do nice things, like maybe he'll buy some flowers or something like that. But it's like, okay, the woman is still, she's making the majority of the income. She is the default parent. This includes my own mother, by the way, coming from a two-parent household. My mother was the default parent emotionally. She was the default parent financially. And I believe that this is the case with a lot of women who are married for like 20 years. And also, a lot of women who are married for decades, the only reason they're still married is because you're in a 50-50 marriage. You're in a marriage where he needs you. He can't get a divorce from you, or he can't afford to cheat on you and to like make you too mad, because he knows that he will literally be homeless. So that's the only reason that he even keeps you around. I'm also convinced that most couples who have been married for decades are actually not in love. They are no longer in a romantic love, like, you know, where it's like, oh, I just want to be around you. I love you. You're so hot. Oh, you're so sexy. All of that. No, I believe that the average couple who has been married for 20 years or more, they actually have more of a friends with benefits roommate situation, or they're more like roommates. Most of the married couples that I've seen that have been together for a long time, they don't even do things like flirting with each other or trying to get the other one's attention or doing what they can to make sure that the other one is consistently happy. And for those who say, well, my husband provides for me, you know, he pays bills, that's wonderful. But there are some of us, myself included, where we don't only want bills. Like, that's actually not enough. Like, for me, it's not enough just for a man to say, I'm going to pay all of your bills. First of all, for God's sakes, I'm one person. I don't have any children. My bills are actually not even that high. So a guy telling me he can pay all of my bills, even if he says for the rest of my life, that doesn't really give me any, that doesn't impress me, because I know that I have so much potential as a woman. I have so much to offer the world. I'm so smart. I feel like I'm so creative. I have so many other things that I want to do. Why would I allow a guy to come in and risk myself being emotionally, physically abused and cheated on just so he can pay a couple $1,000s worth of bills per month? Even if a guy says, I will give you $100,000 a month, still, it's not worth the emotional trauma for me, because I center my life around my mental health. Money means nothing if I am depressed. Money means nothing if I am, suicidal because this guy is cheating on me and I revolve my whole life around him and my whole lifestyle is going to go away without him. I don't believe it is truly the soft life if your life is dependent on a guy, because remember, if you give a guy the power to feed you, he also has the power to starve you. And I don't want to ever be in a position where I'm feeling that powerless. I don't want to ever be in the beggar's position in a relationship. I don't ever want to feel like, oh, I just have to stay with him because I have no money. I don't want to be like that. And also, I have tried stuff like that before, like the housewife life or stay-at-home girlfriend type of thing. And I don't like it. It does not make me feel fulfilled. It doesn't make me feel happy, because once again, you are revolving your whole life around a guy who most likely doesn't even love you. Because again, if you ask the average man to define what love is, he can't even define the term love. Oftentimes, he will start describing ways that you serve him, and that is how you show love. Or, I've noticed that a man's definition of love really just is desire. He just means I desire you. So physically, like I desire you physically. Sometimes he might desire you emotionally as well, but that's pretty rare, because most guys do not even have the emotional intelligence to even know what they want emotionally. And this is why you see guys saying, oh, I'm with a girl and she's crazy. And it's like, well, you should have chosen better. But because a lot of guys are emotionally unintelligent, they will just choose women based on sex or based on sexual attractiveness only. And then they will be surprised when the relationship is toxic. And it's because that man was not emotionally intelligent to begin with. So why would I expect an emotionally unintelligent being to satisfy my life? And then I'm supposed to believe that there's no way that I would ever experience any sort of emotional abuse over the course of 20 years. That is absolutely unrealistic. But another sign of emotional abuse in a relationship is a person that becomes overly and inappropriately jealous of attention from or conversation with others, a person who monitors your time and your whereabouts, monitors your telephone calls, your texts, your emails, makes decisions that affect both of you or the family without consulting you or reaching an agreement with you. I've been around a lot of guys like this in the church because they have the mindset of, I'm the head of the house. So if I decide that we are moving to Texas, then we are moving to Texas. If I decide that we need to get a new house, then we need to get a new house. If I decide I don't like the car that we're driving and I want to spend $30,000 on a new car, then we're getting a new car. So those are actually signs of emotional abuse. Another sign of emotional abuse is a man who controls the finances and how you spend the money. So this is why, again, for me, I can't be in a situation where I don't have my own money, where I don't have anywhere else to live. I don't want a man to be able to dangle homelessness in front of my face. And by the way, that has happened to me before, where a guy would say things like, well, where are you going to live? Whose car are you going to drive? Whose laptop are you going to use? Because that laptop that you have have your YouTube channel on, I bought that laptop. So a lot of guys will actually purchase things for you, and men are not generous on average, first of all. So spending your whole entire life working off of the premise that men are generous, or that it's so easy and simple to attract a generous man that all you have to do is sit around at a bar and put on some makeup and lashes, and then you're just going to find the generous man of your dreams. Not only is that extremely unrealistic, but most men, even if they do give you money or something, they will remind you later on, hey, remember when I gave you that $3,000? Hey, remember when I did XYZ? I can take that away from you. And trust me, any dollar that they give you, they will never let you live it down on average. They will want some sort of payback for that, because you're not just giving nothing in a relationship. You're not just there. Like some girls will say, oh, all I have to do is just show up. All I have to do is just exist, and he's just going to give me everything. No, any man who has a modicum of intelligence wouldn't be stupid enough to do that. So I would assume that if you as a woman chose a man who is actually intelligent and has things going for him in life, and, if he's smart enough to build wealth, then he's smart enough to keep it, right? So you are actually offering him something. Majority of the time, it is things like sex. It's things like companionship. It's things like you are cooking and cleaning, even if you're not cooking and cleaning every day. Even if a maid comes 40 hours a week, who's cooking and cleaning on the nights and weekends? Who's cooking and cleaning after the kids on nights and weekends? And also, I don't like basing dating decisions off of exceptions. The exceptions do not make the rule. The majority of men walking this earth are not able to afford a maid to come in 40 hours a week, or a nanny to take care of your kids, or, somebody to take your kids to soccer practice. That's not the average. So I believe that women can make the smartest decisions if they base their life on, hey, what are the averages? What are the statistics? What is the average issue that I'm going to deal with? And am I willing to deal with this? As opposed to, oh, well, I'm going to bank my whole life on winning the lottery. I'm not going to save any money. I'm not going to have any backup plan whatsoever. I'm just going to hope that I win the lottery. I feel like a lot of times hypergamy, even though I'm not against it, I support hypergamy 100%, but I really do feel like hypergamy on average is more like winning the lottery, as opposed to this is your average everyday experience. Because even if a woman is hypergamous, oftentimes men who have a lot of money and power, they don't have all of that money and power so that they can just sit around and be a faithful, upstanding, emotionally intelligent, nurturing man. No, a lot of guys use their money and power to have access to as many women as possible. A lot of guys use money and power to be corrupt. I mean, look at the way our world is set up today. Our world is run by men. This country is run by men. Capitalism was started by men. Slavery, that was started and enforced by men. Crooked law enforcement, started and enforced by men. So this concept that a man who comes from a group where they usually incite violence and they usually create corruption, for you to suddenly expect that you can just go sit in a bar at a hotel and attract someone who is the complete opposite of that, and someone who is like spiritually enlightened and just emotionally an amazing person. No, you're not going to do that. And so my channel is geared more towards those who you were actually looking for love. You were looking for the emotional connection. You actually were looking for, you wanted it all. You want it all. You're like me. You want the money. You want him to be attractive. You want him to be emotionally available. You want him to be faithful and loyal. It's not enough just to have the money, because you are probably, my audience, you're probably a woman who has your own money, or someone who is very smart, so you can easily get your own money. And for a lot of us women on this side of YouTube who kind of have our own money, and women who are kind of like on our own level up journey, for a lot of us, having a few extra $1,000s a month is not really worth the emotional abuse. It's not worth the physical abuse. It is not worth the infidelity. It's not worth the side babies. It's not worth the risk of catching diseases. Like for the women who say, I don't care if he cheats as long as he's paying my bills, it's like, well, no, I actually do care a lot because I don't want to get diseases. I don't want to potentially, have something coming into my house or have like side babies and stuff. And then it's like, you're hypergamous and you were getting his money, but now 25% of his money is gone because it's now going to child support payments. So now your lifestyle is actually being affected by his side babies because now his income is going to go more towards them, and legally his children are more of a priority than his girlfriend or whoever his new wife is. A lot of women, they benefit most from divorce as opposed to benefiting while they're actually in the marriage. So to me, that is actually a big sign. If the biggest benefit women receive is when they end the marriage, then that's a sign that, maybe you should rethink if you want to be in one. Because remember, on average, the average woman is not marrying a multi-gajillionaire who hires a maid and a nanny, and then he's also faithful and he's emotionally available. No, the average woman who is married, she is going through or has been through at some point emotional abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse, infidelity and cheating, the man being emotionally available. How many of you guys were raised in a two-parent household and you had an emotionally unavailable father? Because I feel like that was more so how my dad was. Like he would try and stuff and he's nice and everything, but I would not call him an emotionally available person. I wouldn't say that he's just over here like, oh, hey, let's spend time together and let's just talk and, let's talk about how we're feeling and stuff. No, the average guy is not like that. The average guy, once he gets married, he just goes to work, comes home. He'll do the same routine as when he was single. He will go to work, come home, and he will be happy. He'll be happy that 50% of his mortgage is paid by you. And then he will go in the room, play video games, look at porn, and then go to sleep. And that's it. That is what the average marriage is. Have you ever thought about what a day in the life is like of the average woman who is married or a woman who has been married for 20 years? Think about what a day in their life is like. Usually it is what I just said. Both parties, they go to work or they come home, or if she's a stay-at-home mom and stay-at-home wife, she is spending her day cooking, cleaning, dropping off and picking up children from school. She's helping them with their homework after school. So she's, again, the default parent. So she's picking them up and stuff and like making sure they get to soccer practice on time, making sure that they are learning stuff or whatever. And she is really investing all of her time in the children. And then they just go to sleep. And the man is really doing the same thing that he would have done when he was single, which is just go to work and come home and, jack off to porn whenever she's not around and look at other girls on Instagram and DM OnlyFans girls and have a separate phone or search on incognito mode on his phone so that you don't see his pornography history and stuff like that. And so it's like, is that really worth it for you? And also, don't even get me started on the psychology of a lot of men. A lot of men actually need space, and women do as well. But a lot of men, on average, they do need a lot of space to the point where if you move in with a man, it's not going to be what you think it is. It's not going to be like this lover's holiday or this lover's vacation every single day, and it's just going to be so romantic. And no, it's not going to be like that on average. Usually the man is going to want his man cave, and notice how there is no woman cave, but usually a man wants his man cave so he can escape from the children, so he can escape from arguing with you. If you get on his nerves, he'll just go in his man cave, he'll slam the door to be passive aggressive and to send the signal that he's angry. A lot of men will actually throw things as well, and that is another sign of emotional abuse and physical abuse as well, because him throwing something out of anger, guess what? It's only going to be a matter of time before he throws you or before he throws his fists at you. I used to not believe that until it happened to me. I used to believe, oh no, he was just angry. Like he would never put his hands on me. He would never even raise his hands at me. Nope, I was wrong. And guess what? The numbers don't lie. The divorce rates don't lie. The DV rates don't lie. And so I personally do believe that a lot of marriages, I believe that the overwhelming majority, about 90% of marriages that have lasted 20 to 30 years, those marriages were likely riddled with cheating, 50-50 scenarios, or the woman's paying 100% of the bills. I've seen that as well too. The woman will be paying 100% of the bills so that her man can build himself up, start his company. She'll be working two jobs so that he can nest and rest and work on his creative abilities, and so he can start his business. So I've seen that as well in a lot of long-term marriages. The woman will be the one working and paying 100% of the bills, and then she will build him up, and then he will take his newfound wealth and his newfound money and use that to go through his midlife crisis and gain access to other women, and then he'll cheat, and then she will forgive him because, this whole life that we've built together, I don't want to give it up, when in reality she just doesn't want to give up the image of being married. So yes, I actually do believe that over 90% of marriages that have lasted for decades, they are riddled with a history of psychological abuse, emotional abuse, infidelity, and all kinds of other issues, including 50-50 or she's paying 100% of the bills. Because like I said, you marrying a millionaire who is such a nice guy and he's your Prince Charming, okay, that's the exception, not the rule. That's equivalent to winning the lottery. You have a greater chance of getting struck by lightning than finding a man who is both emotionally intelligent and rich and also loyal. You literally have a greater chance of getting struck by lightning. Another thing that I've noticed about very long marriages is that very long marriages require a lot of brainwashing on the part of the woman. A lot of women who have stayed married for 20 and 30 years, they have had to spend their life reading a lot of books on, how to stay married, how to cope. Have you ever noticed how as soon as a woman gets married, or actually as soon as a woman gets engaged, people start saying, hey, just so you know, you're going to need these coping mechanisms. So people start offering, hey, you should go to premarital counseling. Hey, here's a marriage counselor in town. Here's a sex therapist that you should go and see. And, make sure you have other couples around you to keep you accountable. Have you ever noticed that the only thing that causes these long marriages to survive is the amount of brainwashing that the woman undergoes? It's the amount of community that the woman has surrounding her. People on average, like the man himself or maybe the woman's religion or the woman's family, they will try to make sure that she is surrounded or like kind of trapped in this bubble of brainwashing. Like, oh no, you need to have XYZ married couples so they can hold you accountable. Stop hanging out with your friends who are single because they're going to ruin your relationship. But it's like, why is it that the woman has to isolate herself from all of these different things just for her marriage to survive? Isn't that a sign that it was probably never going to work out in her favor in the first place? Why does she have to isolate herself from her friends, isolate herself from single women or from watching certain TV shows and stuff? Because I even remember in the church, people would say, oh no, you have to guard your heart, you have to guard your marriage. So it's like you can't even watch certain things. In fact, they would say that watching content like mine, like the content I'm creating right now, that this content is very negative. Have you ever noticed how whenever you start telling the truth, whenever you start giving actual facts, giving screenshots of articles like I've done on this channel, all you're doing is saying, hey, this is my experience and this is all I've seen. I'm not saying all, but there are tens of thousands of women globally, actually millions of women globally who are saying the same thing. All right, do what you will with this information. Notice how it's seen as negative. So have you ever realized that a lot of women who stay in marriages for a long time, in order to even survive in that marriage, she had to undergo a lot of brainwashing. In fact, I have seen women in my own family who they will get mad at their husbands, and the first thing they'll do is they will try to open a marriage book. They will try to go to a therapist themselves, and then they will blame themselves, and they'll say, well, maybe I'm just being depressed. Maybe I'm just not being grateful. That's another gaslighting tactic. Oh, well, you need to be grateful that you got this good black man with money. You need to be grateful that you even got a man, because it's hard out here in the dating market. It's hard to even catch a man. It's hard to even find a man who wants to be married nowadays. It's hard to find a man who's not quote unquote dusty. So you should just stay in your marriage because of that. But it's like, is that really a good reason to stay in a marriage? What happened to wanting to be happy and like mentally healthy? Is that not a priority anymore? Is it just all about having a marriage? Like, why does marriage have to be the woman's top priority in general? And I've noticed that usually in order for a woman to stay in a marriage for so long, she just has to be silent and just take all the crap. Because have you ever noticed how if a woman pulls that same crap with a man, that man will leave so fast. Like if a man is with a woman and that woman gets arrested and goes to prison, for example, or she got caught up in a burglary and she's a part of a gang and she had a side baby with another guy, that guy would be gone so fast. But when the opposite is true, people will be like, oh no, but you're married, so like you need to stay together. Oh, well, for richer or for poorer, for better or for worse, I guess right now is just the time of the worst. So you took a marriage vow and you'll get through it just like you got through everything else. But why do I have to spend the rest of my life coping? Why does the next 20 or 50 years of my life have to be one big giant coping mechanism? Why is it that I have to brainwash myself just to have a modicum of happiness in a marriage? Why is it that when I am single, I thrive? Why is it that single women thrive? Even if you look at the stats, let's talk about women of color who are middle-aged and who are not married. A lot of times the women who are successful, the most successful, I'm talking about like financially, they've got businesses going for themselves, they've got really great retirements and stuff. A lot of times the women who are the most successful and the women who look the best, like they look the most healthy, they're not aging badly, they're aging really well. Oftentimes those women are the women who are unmarried. They're the women who are divorced. Those are the ones who are traveling and stuff. It's not the married women. No, those women are at home cleaning dishes and doing laundry and like raising the kids, taking them to soccer practice and stuff. But a lot of women who they're unmarried or older women who are child free and stuff like that, those are the women that you see the most who are being influencers. There's new trends that are happening on social media where people are talking about how a lot of the home buyers are single women. Single women are the main ones who are like purchasing homes and stuff like that. And have you ever noticed how a lot of the things that men do, it's not because the man would have done it anyway. Men do a lot of things just so they can attract a woman. And that is why once you marry him and once he's got you, he stops putting in all of the effort because he's like, okay, I won. I got her now. So I don't have to do anything else. I can sit on the couch. I can sit on my ass. I can get fat. I can get a beer belly. I can just spend the rest of my life jacking off to corn. Who cares about her being pleasured? Who cares about her having free time to do what she wants? And a lot of people, they will say, oh no, like if you get married, you're just going to live the soft life as a woman. That's not true. On average, the man is actually living a softer life than women, and marrying a white guy does not change this. Marrying a guy who's white or marrying a guy from the suburbs, that doesn't change it, because you know what a lot of married men are doing that are white or men from the suburbs? Because they're certainly not at home being these emotionally available, perfect fathers that a lot of people like to stereotype them as. No, a lot of married men, they're out living their best lives while their wives are at home slaving away. A lot of married white men or non-black men, they'll be out golfing. They'll spend their Saturdays golfing. They will spend their time playing ultimate frisbee. They will join a beach volleyball club and play volleyball with the guys. They will join like an adult soccer league, an adult basketball league. They will be spending hours training for marathons and triathlons and training for Ironman races. Do you know how many hours and how many miles you have to run? Do you know how many miles you have to bike to train for those races? So a lot of those guys, they're out here living their best lives while their wives, white women, are at home cleaning up after them. They're cooking dinner. Those women are at home by themselves. So all of that romance that you thought you were going to get in the marriage, all of that romance that she thought she was going to get, all of that whining and dining that she thought she was going to get for the next 80 years, no, it's not happening, because now that man feels like, okay, cool, so I already checked off that box. So now let me go check off these other boxes. Now I want to do my Ironman competition. Now I want to get into bodybuilding and I want to like get yoked at the gym. Oh, and I'm not going to tell her that I'm hitting on this girl at the gym and that, she might be my sugar baby on the side. I'm not going to tell her that. I'm just going to act like I'm just working out. But this is the reality of a lot of marriages, especially the ones that last for decades. What do you ladies think? Especially the ladies like myself who have come from two-parent homes where your parents are married. Would you trade relationship status with your mother? Would you marry a man like your father? Would you have the exact same marriage with a man that your mother has with your father? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.